So really, this is what I'm going to talk about, values, actions, and indicators. And this really follows on from quite a number of presentations which have already taken place. And I'm just going to look at another aspect of bringing what we call values or even spirituality, what is right action, and indicators, something that will tell us whether we're actually approaching in the right direction and reaching there or not. So I will start by just saying something about myself. I'm an environmental engineer. I've been a consultant as well as involved in research and development as well as innovation game for many years. I'm passionate about values-based ethics, and this is why I'm kind of presenting something here, which I hope you'll find interesting. Um, and I also support environmental initiatives locally, regionally, and globally, including climate healers. And so, as a as an introduction, values, incorporating values in everything we do is almost like bringing grammar into correcting our sentences. And I think we all know this, but my ultimate aim is to actually come up with a rational, logical approach, which is going to allow us to perhaps automate decision aids, not make decisions, but at least aid them so that we can actually have them in parallel and humans can then judge what is the right action. So climate change, biodiversity loss, and inequalities are really symptoms of misaligned human values. Now, a lot of the work that Dr. Rao does, as well as other scientists and engineers around the world, they reveal the root causes. But I think it's the values and spirituality. Somebody said the actual going inwards earlier is what actually makes our intent clear and moves us towards right actions. So our intents helps us with our decisions, and then we have to act on them. And having having acting having being acting on them, we also need to understand whether we are moving in the right direction or not. So we need to have measurable improvements, something that will tell us whether we're moving in the right direction or not. So we need to have a transparent and accountable decision aid that can guide not only individuals, but organizations and governments towards measurable improvements. But the journey will require values alignment at every level. So for individuals, it's knowledge, thought, and action, something I'll come on to for individuals. Um, for organizations, the same levels become policy, people management, and practice. There are other agents of change. We can also look at communities. We can also look at governments. We can also look at faith organizations. All of these things, we can actually do the same thing that I'm doing here with. But I'm going to be focusing partly on individuals, which you may have heard from me, but I'm going to focus much more on organizations because I feel we need to kind of reach outwards to agents of change. And I think the companies, multinational corporations, similar organizations, institutes are the way to go. And we need to kind of advise them on policies, people management, and practice. So what is this transformation that we're talking about? As Dr. Rao has often told us, it's really about A to B transformation. Planetary, over-consuming, exploiting, separating from nature, driven by harmful habits. It has economics that don't really work for sustainability of the planet, industrial agriculture, and all of these things are actually leading us astray. It's leading to climate crisis and ecological breakdown. So it's completely unsustainable. And this is where we need to move to, not to another planet, but as someone said earlier, that for humans, we need to kind of become as we really are, rather than what we sometimes tend to be in the moment, or due to our bad intentions, or even sometimes just convenience. So we need to move towards, let me just get a pointer out. So towards sufficiency, compassionate, and harmony with nature, emphasizing rewarding regeneration, ethical and vegan food choices, and leading to ecosystem restoration. So that's what we're looking at as far as sustainability is concerned. And here, I'm actually going to point you to some homework that you can do by yourself by watching these two videos. And I'm going to just briefly mention the values model that I have come up with and have written about, as well as produced some short videos on. So this one, the power of values, is about 6 minutes, and the programmable digital ethics is about 8 minutes. Please, view them if you're really interested in this. But what I'm really focused on is how we go from where we may be. When we're born, we are often at a stage of selfishness. Sometimes we go backwards towards rather ignorant selfishness, but we need to keep moving in this direction and move towards what I would call the ultimate spiritual being, or human excellence. Because we are human beings, we need to perhaps acquire that. And there's not just one approach to it. There is the guided path. So from a young age, our parents, our teachers, our faiths, philosophers, and also teachers can actually guide us towards that. But we can also do that ourselves, just as it is in Bhagavad Gita, that you can have a knowledge path as well as an action path. And so the model that I'm going to be covering will go into those. But looking at the whole of this model, I'm going to be representing that in a very simple way with two axes to represent all the possible values. Again, you'll have to watch the videos to understand what that really means. But I'm going to use just two values here for now. And I'm going to put quadrant 1 characteristics, quadrant 2 characteristics, third and fourth characteristics, and just show you what they are. I'm going to color code them for ease. So really, the quadrant 1 is truth with love, 2 is truth without love, 4 is love without truth, and this one is no love, no truth. So you can see the color coding that I will be using. So we as individuals operate at these three levels of head, heart, and hands, or as I have called them, knowledge base, thought base, and action base. So these three levels is what we operate at. And what I want to point out is that robots can perhaps do better than human beings, mainly because of this particular level. If you give the robot the right knowledge and, wire it to the right actions, it'll do it. But we have this thought or mind or, feeling that actually sometimes makes us go astray. And that's something that I will come on to. Now, when we have misalignment of values, look at the values that I have just put as just typical values, non-violation, or, this is the ultimate in dharma, when we are acting with fullness of love and truth. But also you can have truth without love as bluntness, or you can have love without truth as dishonesty, or complete violation of love and truth. Similarly, in these other quadrants as well. Again, please look at my model videos to understand a little bit more deeply. But when there is misalignment between knowledge and thought, it's our intrinsic inner being that is actually affected, and that is not good. This is sometimes, not sometimes, in fact, very often, we actually misalign our outer ethics with our thought. And, that is something we can live with, but it's not ideal. So let's look at individual basis, knowledge, thought, and actions, as I said, we operate at, and we need to align our values, the green with green with green. We don't want amber there if green is aligned there and so on. And we need to work in the green zone as much as possible. We may be in other zones, but we need to see what we need to do in order to come to the green zones. So what does it mean? And I'll come on to the kind of representation of values shortly, but this is the general inquiry that we need to undertake, self-inquiry. So at knowledge level, we need to say, do I understand the evidence and consequences of my choices? At thought level, we need to ask, are my intentions and values consistent with what I know at knowledge level? And at action levels, once we have performed some, we need to examine whether our behaviors reflect those values in everyday life. And so this is all designed to lead us to behaviors that produce measurable benefits for the self in line with Planet B. Now, this is a fairly fine diagram that you won't be able to read, but the reason why I've actually made it smaller is that some of this writing here should be there and that should be there. But I will correct that in due course. So what does this show? When we're in this green zone where truth seeking with clarity is what we need, if we're already there, we simply need to deepen our understanding on a continuous basis, remain teachable, and avoid ego. This is to maintain our spiritual balance. It has already been said by several speakers that when we become vegan, that is almost like serenity, because there is complete consciousness that we feel because of our knowledge, thought, and actions are then aligned. Now, if you're not at the ideal stage, suppose you're at the amber stage here, knowledge level 2 or quadrant 2, then we need to apply knowledge in daily choice with care and share with others. If you're in K3, which is the worst of the 4, we need to drop false beliefs, verify facts, cultivate humility. Now, all of these things are easily said than done, but this is what we need to design our actions on. And that can actually take, if I was to talk to you about that, that can take me hours. So we'll keep it brief, and you can always ask me further questions. If we're on K4, which is knowledge without truth, so it's love without truth at the knowledge level, then we need to seek broader sources, question assumptions, and learn continuously. Now, so that dealt with the knowledge level. Now we're coming to the thought level, which is the middle level, as I showed earlier. And again, I'm going to show you what it means to be in T1, which is the quadrant 1 for thought, or T2, or T3, or T4. And at T1, it's complete clarity, compassionate, discipline, willingness to act, and so on. So, if you're already there, you need to still guard your mind, avoid negative influences, and meditate daily. But if you're at any of the other quadrants at the thought or intent level, then we need to do something about it. So if you're in T2 here, we need to practice mindfulness consciously. We need to try hard. We need to provide focus, gratitude, self-discipline, and so on. If you're in T3, which is that hopeless case, we can still improve. We need to begin to cultivate love, forgiveness, empathy, and self-inquiry. And if you're at T4, which is love without truth at thought level, then we need to strengthen our willpower, set purpose, visualize positive impact, and so on. And so once we have actually undertaken those right actions, and remember, my aim here is to actually reach people who are able to perhaps look at this in a much more structured manner to then say whether we are approaching in the right direction or not. So here are some typical indicators. I've just listed 10 of them. So what will they be for individuals? Dietary sustainability, plant-derived versus animal products, and ultra-processed foods. Personal health, healthy body weight, blood pressure, cardiovascular fitness, and so on. Food waste, least amount of food waste. Carbon footprint, lowering emissions as much as possible in everything we do. Nature connection, time with nature, supporting diversity, biodiversity, and so on. Compassionate consumption, community contribution, love, lifelong learning, physical and mental well-being, spiritual development, cultivating selflessness and inner peace through meditation, prayer, and service. So these are all things which are actually pointed to by using the model, the values model that I mentioned. And that is what we call human excellence. And I think many people that we see, not least the leader of climate healers, are actually at this level of human excellence. Right. Now we go to the organization level. So what I'm saying here is that at a company, institution, or multinational corporation, the kind of questions we need to ask, and again, there will be more detailed questions, but these are just high-level ones. Do our policies reflect the best available evidence and consequences of our decisions? So that's at policy or governance level. When it comes to people or management structure level, then we need to ask, are our organizational values, leadership, and incentives consistent with those policies? And at practice levels, we need to ask, do our everyday operations and decisions consistently reflect those values and policies? Are we in alignment with the policy and people that we have listed here? And this is all to lead to measurable positive outcomes for the organization, but as well as for their customers, employees, society, and the environment. Remember exactly what Planet B needs to be. And those Planet B principles set the ideas here. So let's look at the values for the organization as well. So earlier we looked at for the individual, knowledge, thought, actions, but for organization, it's policy, people, and practice. So it's governance, management, and outcome. Now, this diagram actually shows the different areas that we may find any one company in. So in this green zone, we may have a company with policies grounded in science and truth, guided by love, compassion, and justice. This is the goal. Or we can find companies which are strong on data, facts, and rules, but lacks compassion and equity, and care. So it's not kind of applying love in its truest sense. If it is in quadrant 4, love without truth, then there are good intentions, but without evidence, rigor, or real-world effectiveness. So it needs a bit of truth in what they do. But if you're in that hopeless zone of Q3, where it lacks both ethical compass and factual foundation, they create harm and risk all over. So they need a lot of attention. So what will be the actions? I'm just listing typical actions. So lead with love. Place the well-being of people and planet at the heart of every policy. Stand on truth. Use the best available science, facts, and evidence. Focus on alignment. Align policies with mission, values, and Planet B principles. Set clear goals and standards. Define what success looks like. Accountability and transparency. Review, learn, and improve, and so on. And there will be some outcomes that will directly lead from policy, and I have listed some of them. So environmentally, net zero emissions, for instance, restored ecosystem, conserved biodiversity, circular resource use, and so on. There are also social outcomes, economic outcomes. I won't go into all of them now. At people management level, the transformation again needs to be towards this ideal quadrant where people are treated with dignity and respect, high standards with compassion, empowered, engaged, and accountable. But if you're in any other place, you need to kind of strive to get into this green zone. So again, let's just look at the actions. Lead with love. So this is actually the management level now, people management level, lead with love. Build a culture of respect, compassion, and inclusion. Stand on truth, be honest, clear, and evidence-based. Empowerment and trust. Enable autonomy and accountability. Clear expectations and standards. Annual reviews are very often the way to kind of incorporate values there. Set and communicate high standards, accountability and feedback, create a culture of ownership and learning, continuous improvement, adapt, learn, and evolve together. And again, there will be outcomes from the actual operation. So motivated, capable workforce that drive lower emissions, resource efficiency and generation, higher engagement, well-being. So all of these things which will come out of the right values will and aimed at Planet B principles and goals will actually lead to very good outcome. And how will we know? Well, these are the typical indicators that we can actually look at: environmental footprint, net reductions of greenhouse gas emissions, water use, pollution, and waste. Circular resource use, we can measure percentage material reused or recycled or regenerated. Plant-based innovation, investment in products, services, and so on. Biodiversity impact, employee well-being, ethical supply chains. All of these things, the way I've listed them, can all be measured. And look at this, purpose alignment, evidence that corporate decisions balance financial success with societal and environmental well-being. Again, we need to kind of incorporate this idea of ahimsa coin principles here as well. So this is what is organizational excellence. So to summarize, we have that destination called Planet B for all of us, individuals, organizations, governments, and so on. And I'm here focusing more on the organization. So we have that one shared destination, but the paths may be many because there may be some roads that may actually have obstacles. So we may have to divert, but remember what the ultimate aim is. So for the individual, it's really self-realization. It's the greatest opportunity we have in the face of planetary crisis to actually realize our own self, to solve the crisis, equipped with the right knowledge, align intention with values, translate into right actions. And at organization levels, it's really about creating products, services, and outcomes sustainably, build a policy, align people with the policies and organizational values, and deliver through good practice. And that, I think, is it. Sorry, this was a really a fast track to dealing with values, actions, and indicators.
Hey, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Dr. Prabodh Mistry. I actually should thank you for my slides as well, because they're wonderful. So I'll just share that. Just a moment. Replace the current. Sure. I'm wondering what you can see at the moment.
Yes, we can see the slides on the side and the main slide.
Okay. Get this right. Do you see that? fully, or is it?
No, it's not full yet. Maybe
Maybe
slideshow.
do that first, perhaps.
Okay. That was wonderful, Dr. Mistry. That was really great. I took some screenshots. So.
Okay, sorry about that. So just setting up, see if I can get back to my Zoom. Okie dokie.
Yes, perfect.
Thank you. So, Simonics is a long journey. My name's Krishna Gandhi, and I'm the CEO of Simonics. The company was set up in 2013, and it's been a logical iteration to where we actually are getting. So this slideshow was, I believe, Dr. Prabodh Mistry put into the Articles of Association to AI, and it really has. It's a beautiful visual of what the Articles of Association is. And the company is is a neurotech company where it measures the brain activity to provide biophysiological measures or estimates, so of hormones and neurotransmitters. And the bit back when I found out about it in 2009 and 8 is my research, my master's dissertation project was, oh, look, there's a thought, and it has a physiological impact. And so therefore, when I was set the company up, the slogan was "Thoughts Matter," and that was the neurotech, a technology and a medical device, but there you have this connection with the mind and the brain, and how your thoughts have a material impact. And that's where where the spiritual aspect and the scientific aspect integrated. So it's been a bootstrapped journey, because we essentially have been doing what we've been doing, which is in the Articles of Association, and trying to keep it extremely pure and kind of aligned to the values and actions today. And it's the trade-off is it's taken a very long time. So what's happened is that we've got to the product development, get the raise. Now the next thing was to now ensure that this technology can serve its purpose, is to then make sure the governance is in line. And so in order to do that, we designed and structured the Articles of Association of the company that's aligned to what would be a Planet B company. And so the Ram Rajya corporate structure was inspired by this book that describes the Ram Rajya. In the book's called Valmiki Ramayana by Pandurang Sastry, and he explains what the Ram Rajya is. So Rajya is a type of kingdom, the way it's been governed, and Ram was an excellent human being. And what it's saying is that we can only pick that excellent leader when society is as excellent. So when each of us are to that inner ideal aligned, we will then pick a leader. And when we pick that leader, we'll have somebody that's serving society and has the well-being of everybody in mind, and is willing to take guidance from those that would be considered wise men. And in the Vedic philosophy, they're called rishis. So this was something that was so relevant to the company, in terms of it. We've got something that has a link to the internal system. How do we make sure that actually serves in society? We need to make sure it's held responsibly and serves responsibly. So we have this thing called the Ethics Charter, and it's in our annex, and it's got the root of it is dharma. So we have to ensure that dharma is how the company is governed. And normally it was the wise men that was implementing the dharma within society. And there were these 5 different arms. So you've got truth, you've got justice, you've got service, you've got environmental responsibility, and you've got the welfare of all. And here we kind of put this into our charter, and this is how the ethics charter, and this is going to be the way in which the company has to work. So so how did we do that? So how the actual structure of the Ram Raja was, you have the king and you have like the people who are operating society, and then you have the wise men, the rishis, and then you have the people that work in the kingdom, and then you have strategic partners or people who are doing other services in the company to also have this smooth running of society. And so we have the executive king and their board members as the CEO, who would then take counsel from the wise men. That's what we call the rishi guardians. And you'd have people who are working for the company, and then you'd have community strategic partners like climate healers, or any other kind of community partners that are doing something that are bringing the world to a better place. And they would then feed back to the company to make sure that we haven't missed anything, or there's some information that we need to consider. It needs to be considered by the board, and there has to be a proper acknowledgement and process and due consideration. Now, the ethics charter was something that in this model, if the rishi, the wise men said, or wise people, I say men, but the rishi guardians, they call the rishis, the wise ones, said that something was unethical, they would veto any kind of decisions made by the executive board or the king. And the king would listen to it because they respected the rishis and found them to be high in their character and had conviction to the spiritual lofty ideals for all of society. So they would gladly take their counsel and take their authority on ethical issues. And we in our articles of association have tried to capture the spirit of this described model of the Ram Raja by having certain people as sorry, beg your pardon, as certain people as the rishi guardians, and they have certain shares. So if I just bring it down here, how do we structure that into the company? So we have share classes, because that's how companies work. So you have the ordinary shares, that's your executives, your shareholders, people who invest. Then you've got and we call them ordinary shares. Then you have another set of class of shares, and they're called ex-gov. We call them ex-gov or rishi shares. And they have 10 votes per share, plus they have absolute veto power, meaning if there's anything that happens that crosses the red line within the ethics charter, they can just say, no, that's not happening. But the thing is, their shares have no economic value because they're not doing it for the money, and they're not transferable either. And then we have the third class, which is the C shares, C employee for the employees, where they don't have any votes, but they do have economic value and they can exchange it. So if they do well, if the company does well, they also get the benefits of that. And then we have community strategic partners, and their shares are called DCOM. And so they'd be shareholders, and they'd have a vote linked to Planet-B Council. So what that means is that, I'll get to it now, but the profits of the company, a certain amount of it would be allocated to a Planet-B trust fund. And the overseers of that trust fund would be community partners like climate healers or the Planet-B trust fund. And so they would make sure that allocation is being used to build Planet-B for any initiatives that need the money. And so it's not limited on Planet A systems. So we're able to provide a flow of economic support to go towards all initiatives that are building Planet-B. And again, they don't have an economic value because they do that anyway. They just need money so that they can do what they need to do. But their shares don't need the economic value, and they're not transferable either. So we kind of tried to capture the structure within the share structuring of a company, and given the powers of those different components of the Ram Raja by modeling the permissions or the powers of each shareholding class. So now here what we have is the CEO and the board. And you've got the people that work for the company on the right, that community council, and you've got the employee council. Sorry, so the community council would be the people in NGOs, strategic partners. You've got the employees, that people that work for the company, and they also feed back into the executive operations of the company. And it's within the Article of Association that we absolutely must hear it, process it, address it, and the board would also consist of the Wiseman. So it's in their interest to make sure that everything is operating according to the ethics charter, because that's their spiritual goal and responsibility. So the outcome of the productive outcome of the business would then allocate 30% of the funds to Planet B. And that would then allow the funds to build the Planet B. And again, expedite all efforts so that the rate limiting step is not based on Planet A. And then after we can think about dividend pools, but the priority is making sure that it goes back into building Planet B. So we have this system in place where you have a product, you have the operations, it's designed, you have these guidelines, very strong guidelines with the ethics charter and the vetoing. You've got in the ethics charter, you have red lines and you have the green path. So very definitive what you can and can't do. And the Dharma tests. I mean, this is a bit of details that we go into when you're looking at looking at running a company, like what's transferable, what's not transferable, how do you transfer the shares, how do you pick the director, how do you pick the rishis, what are the qualifications, and in the Vedic philosophy, character is the highest qualification for anything. And it's something that can't be bought, stolen, or copied. It's something that's lived. Somebody has to live that life and build character. And that's where that trust comes in. And it's not something that we can just, but very, very easy to break. It's takes years to build. And then if one kind of goes away from alignment, it's very, very easy to break one's own character, as in terms of reputation and trust. And so having a demand of that kind of level of people of excellence and having a use for them that's not necessarily linked directly to a financial reward is really important for our company, at least, so that when we take their advice and counsel, we know there is no conflict of interest. So this is a thing that's actually interestingly a concern with the people that are trying to move towards a spiritual world where they feel that there's no life and upliftment, where they don't feel themselves being of value in today's world. We really do need people like this, and because there's no value, that's why we're finding that we're moving to an unsustainable planet. But if we can incorporate these kind of people into our models to give balance back, and to ensure that we've got good use of our economic resources and capital and direct it in the right way, then we can build a sustainable planet and speed up the efforts that are going towards Planet B. So we got commercial success and then planetary regeneration, which is the outcome. And so this is how we've tried to now implement the company so that we can help support the movement towards Planet B. So that's the link towards the government and policy and values implementation, that real implementation, and we'll see. We'll see as we get into the real world and start to generate and get the right people and seek the people and ask for the right people to come on and value these great people, and then get the trust fund open. So there's lots of exciting things to come. And, it's just amazing to be able to test this, this design. So it's all, it's all needs to be tested still. But I'm just taking inspiration from what's already been done and trying to implement it in the current modern world. So, but really lovely, really lucky to be able to, grateful to be able to share this with you all. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow. Both of those were wonderful presentations. It seems like, Prabodh, yours was more of the steps and the ideas, and then it looks like yours, Krishna, was sort of the methods of getting corporations or businesses to move. Is that a good summary of those two, or why don't you rephrase yours?
Mine's just an implementation of what's been in the Ram Rajya for a very long time. And this is the next step in our process of the company. It was a natural thing, and it happens to be Planet B aligned. And so we got it, to say we have the community strategic partner is great, because Climate Healers is just that. And this is what the reason we've held out up until this time is exactly because of the reasons that every effort, the companies itself are designed essentially to serve the shareholders. And all of this dynamic, youthful energy and innovation ends up getting stolen by these greedy people. So we never get to see the outcome of the lofty ideals of the youthful innovations, the youth innovations, because they get excited. They're like, oh, we've got funding. And suddenly it gets steered away into, serving someone's pocket rather than actually empowering the individual. Now, the thing about this is that we have to be extra careful, because this technology is where you've got the link between the mind and the brain. That's why it's quite unique. And then it's kind of opening the gate of the unknown. And we want to make sure that that's held in responsible hands. I certainly don't want I don't want to be responsible for it being misused or having detrimental impacts in humanity, not under my name or my watch. So, so it ties in with the general philosophy, with the Vedic philosophy. And then we did the Articles of Association, and that was filed in December 2025 at the company's house here. But then there was a rejection because there's some error in it. So we had to refile it, and it took such a long time because they're backdated with all the new stuff that's happening here. And we changed it. So we changed it to June 25 because we did the update. But now it's accepted at Companies House. So there's a UK legal system to enforce this structure in our company, this is the protective part. Yeah, because now somebody can't come in and buy the shares and then do what they want, because the UK law will enforce this governance. It's quite similar to, and this is of course universal, so it's not a religious thing. It's just that it inspires for a universal philosophy. But you've got like Sharia law that's also implemented the same way, in the same method, where they have a company in the Articles of Associations. So the UK government will then protect that law. So we did it with this way towards Planet B, included into it. So let's see what happens with that. Yes.
Wow, I think we could talk a whole lot more about this. I'm going to open it up for questions if that's okay, unless Prabodh, you'd like to say a few words, but we do have a question.
Sure. I think we should go to question.
Okay.
Okay, it's me, Allison.
Hi, Alison.
Hi. I wanted to explore with both of you. I think business for most of us seems largely unapproachable, and yet many of us maybe work for a business. In our Climate Healers Vegan Rewilding team, we want to do a little recording on what businesses can do to support vegan rewilding. And so I'm going to call on both of you to help us with that segment. But for any of us who maybe work for a company, is there something, what would be the method for getting some of these things implemented? What would the starting point be?
If I go first, the reason why I'm interested in companies and institutions is because I've been working with many, and in the last 15 years, I've been monitoring a lot of work on behalf of the British government, and I've monitored well over 700 projects. And I know the small organization, large organization, and I think we really need to kind of go at it with the regulations that is in place for the environment. We have climate regulations in the UK, but also guide those companies to be able to put this idea of net zero, or in our case, what is an ideal sustainability, the Planet B principles in their governance, in their policies, and then show them how to actually implement them. And it's easy said than done, but each becomes an exercise of a one-to-one. And it's something that I have done more for what's called pollution and prevention control regulations, which came in many years ago. So I think it's the policy area that we need to align with the government regulations as well as sustainability.
Now, I've heard, I don't actually work for a company now, but I've heard that many companies nowadays have something called a sustainability officer. Is that true?
Yes, very true. But these tend to be very junior roles, and they're always learning. Now, there were several projects that I was part of at the local government, and they have been given the mandate to make their region as net zero as possible. And I can tell you that they struggled to recruit the right people because I shouldn't say old fogies like myself, but the old people who are already in there, grown-up people, they didn't know how to. And I think very often it was a case of bringing in consultants to show what to do. And it was the younger generation who had been recruited. They were learning fast, but it was a slow process. I stayed with 4 local authorities for 18 months, and saw a lot of progress. So I agree that there are those posts, but they're not very get up and go. They have to be guided.
Now, what if I'm a young person and I'm just finishing high school and I'm interested in sustainability, and I never heard of a sustainability officer, but if I were a guidance counselor, what would I tell such a student to study to become a good sustainability officer?
Yes, I would say any of the sciences, physics, biology, chemistry, because that is the best way to understand the kind of science and also the ultimate impact that we may have on the ecology, on the environment and so on. So, there are specialist courses at master's level, but if they're going into, say, a degree level, any basic degree, science or engineering, is that nowadays they actually include a lot of environmental themes as well.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then at the master's level, what would they study? Sustainability or?
Yes, they tend to kind of bring lots of disciplines into one area. So I have seen environmental science at master's level. I've also seen AI and environmental, solutions uh, at master's level. There are lots. There are lots, even in engineering terms.
Okay, and ideally then you would be getting a master's degree. And what kind of an income could I hope to get as an environmental uh, sustainability engineer or sustainability?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't have a specific answer, but I can tell you that in a lot of the projects that I have monitored, one of the key thing is actually recruitment of the right people. And somebody with a PhD in the UK is given something like £40,000 salary, gross salary. And that is not high enough, in my opinion, to make them do, you know, not only the degree, but PhD and, go on to that. Clearly, once they get into the relevant work streams, they do climb higher because they will take leadership positions and so on. But the entry levels are not so high.
The starting salary, yeah.
Yes. There's another issue that has actually come up, which is the graduates are not being taken up very readily, mainly because of the things like ChatGPT are able to replace those uh, lower level kind of researcher grades, which is where most of the graduates start. So those jobs are kind of reducing in number.
Hmm.
So I think this is kind of the kind of thing that Simonics wants to address, is to create like economic support for aligned people, whether it's NGOs that want to do something and they want to work in the system and do something to move towards Planet B. We need to have funds allocated to that. But in the model for Simonics, at least as a company, we need people to have certain characters. We need them to be vegan if they want to be directors. We need them to be vegan if they want to be rishis. If they want to be a community stakeholder, they also need to be vegan. So what we want is like the character of people and who they are is also a qualification, the highest qualification. They need to live it. And I think even if they get that, I think the grasping powerful. You're going to get good value from anyone like that, really, if you get it. And if they go into any discipline, if they come in, get work experience with climate healers and get access to so many people doing so many things from doing so many different disciplines, or read the Planet B Guide to Planet B. Get involved in getting this on their CV. Like, this is what I did. This is what I did here. This is what I know about. Go and do a law course, especially MBAs. The problem with MBAs is that they are teaching the wrong thing. They're teaching about how to grow greed. I mean, this is just like the whole model's wrong. And so it doesn't matter coming out of an MBA. It's like almost anyone at MBA they're trouble. Unless because they're there to like it's a Planet A system kind of mindset. So either the business, the Master Business Administration syllabus writer we need to be in contact with them and say, you really need to change your your syllabus and bring sustainability into it. Otherwise, it's not good business, because business, we need to change we really need to change the goal of what business is. It can't just be an economic extreme. Like, that just doesn't work. And that just leads to, that's bad business, So I think even with throwing like bankrolling efforts, like they've done with AI, for example, at all costs, that's bad business. None of that is good. It doesn't matter how good the innovation is. It's not a good, it doesn't, there's, so the system is, as Dr. Rao says, there's so many falsehoods in this, and And we're trying to fit it into that. We can't. We have to make so many changes. And that's why we're trying to create space here. But hey, we're just trying to make some space for like clean flow of energy, whether it's economics or resources or thinking or products, so that we can, you know, build a clean system. It's just really difficult to do otherwise in a system that's inherently you know, built on falsehood. So that's, I think making money is, this is why what we're trying to do with Simonics is to try and generate so people can make their bread and butter 9 to 5 without getting fed only to serve planet A, essentially. We're never going to come out of that. So yeah.
There are 2 other people with their hands raised, but maybe the 2 of you would write in the chat for me. My second question was, are there any companies that are leading the way other than Simonics? Are there any examples of companies that are taking baby steps or maybe doing something right? Some companies that maybe are examples of, you know, exploring this direction. Anyway, I'll let Rebecca take over with the next question.
I think they are. It's just about making sure that they get the design right. And I've got good inspiration and feedback to be able to integrate that into what we've got. Now we need to see if it works. So that's the only thing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Allison. And thank y'all for answering. We do have 2 other questions. And if you have time, Krishna and Prabodh, we have time to continue questions for a bit, if that's okay. Okay, I think this is wonderful.
And Renee King-Sonnen is here.
Oh, Renee is here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's see then. What do? We have these 2 questions. If you can, I think Allison, you said put it in the chat?
Yes.
They could put it in the chat too, in the comments, in the feedback section. No, she can't find it. Okay, Danielle, do you want to say something real quick? Because I know Toby can reach us.
It's Toby, yeah.
I know Toby can reach us, so I'm going to ask Danielle.
Yeah,
Okay.
hey, great idea, great. Wouldn't it be lovely if the world could go that way? But we're living in a capitalistic, greedy world. How do we deal with that component?
Thank you.
Well, my view is that that is the world we have, and we have to kind of convince them towards Planet B principles. And I think initially it may not sound right, but we have to go into those companies and work with them. I mean, this is, it's inevitable. We cannot isolate them. We have to work with them and actually make them see that the right principles, the right management, and right action will actually put them on a sustainable path. And that's very clear to see. From the previous question, I was actually going to suggest, I can't remember the names, but 2 food businesses have actually taken initiatives to go vegan base in Bristol that I have come across. And they're doing really good. Just day before yesterday, when Dr. Sailesh Rao was also here with us, we actually went to a restaurant which was called Planetary Eating, I think it was, or something along that line. And you know, there were 2 restaurants. That restaurant was actually packed with queues. The other restaurant wasn't. So actually, you know, we need to work with the businesses we have. Yes, they hadn't perhaps abided by all of the principles, but they were really on the track, and we need to encourage them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to say Toby is still up here wanting to ask. So Toby, if you have a question, not a comment, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry, I do give comments to the questions. This is actually a question from Donna in the chat for Mr. Mistry. And they say, your process starts with finding the facts. Regarding finding the truth and reality facts, they would love to know how you suggest we deal with our natural inclination to reject facts and the ideas that are in conflict with our current ideas, cognitive dissonance.
the reason why we reject, facts is because of our bad intentions. We don't like change, so we actually use whatever we know in order to justify what we're doing. What they really need to do is to actually perhaps be more honest with what they know. Our conscience and our knowledge are the right guide. But if our intentions aren't right, then that's the kind of outcome we will get. I with Dr. Sailesh Rao, we actually went to a party of lots of volunteers, and we came across lots of people who said, "Oh, yes, I agree with this, and that. Oh, but I cannot give up eggs. Or I cannot give up this." And then you ask them deeper questions, and you can see them withdrawing because that cognitive dissonance is beginning to work. And I think it needs to happen more and more. We need to kind of be honest and open and be able to challenge. My only concern is that we're not widening the network. And I think the organization is an area which can help us to widen this network to get the message out there and help them to do things. We have had one meeting with a group of companies in Abingdon as well, when Dr. Sailesh Rao was here. So, like that, we need to kind of approach the companies and show them how to do things.
There was also a follow-up. They question the whole concept that there is a truth, reality, or fact that we can uncover as our starting point, as it is so difficult to abandon our reality that we have developed.
The reality may be a perception, but I think there is a process to get to the right knowledge. In Hinduism, knowledge seeking is the highest thing that one can do. Knowledge seeking, and that means true knowledge, and with a goal of uplifting yourself. And so I think if we are open and honest, and conscientious about the whole thing, we can uncover it. Clearly, when we're born, we are innocent, but once you acquire knowledge, that's when it begins to kind of affect our mind and so on. But that's where we need to kind of provide that alignment of values with what we know, with what our intents.
Can I just chime into the end of that as well? When you're building anything new and making a space, it takes steps. You need perseverance. You need to hold out and get the momentum going before, it actually gets the ball rolling enough for activation energy for it to be self-sustaining. So, even with changing a system, like the will of the people, which, say, for example, climate healers, all of this effort, no one's getting paid. It's everyone's making the effort, and they're making the effort, and they're reaching out, and they're building an ecosystem that will then eventually hit a point and where the activation energy will come, where it then actually starts creating a new system. But it does require belief, effort, sustained energy, concentration, and then that will happen. And these are all qualities of showing that your character. So if we've got enough people and energy of the right characters aligned, and that's literally the core of what we need, because it's not going to happen any other way, and that doesn't take any money. And
thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
and that's it. Then we can actually build a economic system.
Right.
That's all. But it takes a lot to change a system, doesn't it? So
it really does. And thank you, Toby, for bringing up the speaker's questions. My goodness, that was powerful. And I hadn't seen so much of your work, Krishna, before. That was really insightful. And it makes me start thinking about what I can say to other people about how they can start coming into Planet B. And thank you, Dr. Prabodh. That was beautiful. As you know, I've screenshot some of your slides, and I'll be listening to these again. Thank you so much. for your
Thank you.
presentation today.
The earth is calling soft and clear, not with judgment, not through fear. She whispers through the wind and trees, remember who you're meant to be. We are not divided souls, but living parts of greater wholes. Every heart, every nation holds a piece of worldwide resolution. We have remedies beyond survival, beyond the stories of denial. 1,000 pathways join as one. The healing has already begun. We have the remedy for compassion revolution, peaceful collaboration, a worldwide resolution. Loving guidance lights the way. Hope for humanity begins today. With loving kindness, hand in hand, together we restore the land. True nature lives in every seed, in every generous word and deed. The rivers, forests, skies and seas reflect the peace we choose to breathe. Spiritual embodiment, a living sacred testament, not escaping from this earth, but honoring her endless worth. Sacred restoration, hearing every generation. The birthright to existing in freedom, shared by every life beneath the sun. Beyond our borders, beyond our names, love burns brighter than our blame. From every culture, every shore, we discover what we're living